Hi, it's Jack, and this is the podcast version of this episode. If you want to read the words as they're being analysed, then if you're on Spotify, you can become a subscriber of this channel or head over to the YouTube channel. And on both platforms, you can also sign up to get exclusive episodes and early access to the regular weekly episodes too. Charlie Adelson testified, and he lied, but he didn't hide it as well as he thought.
She told me that Wendi had just called her and that Dan had been shot and that it was serious and that her and my dad are going to be going up to Tallahassee to be with her.
How did you react?
I was shocked. I said, is he okay? Is he going to be okay?
In this episode, I break down exactly how Charlie's words betrayed him and what it teaches us about deception in real life. This is one of the clearest case studies we've ever covered. You will walk away seeing lies in words in a whole new way. Welcome to Never a Truer Word, where we look at the words that people choose to use to see if they're telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. If you're new here, what I do is different from anyone else. I strip away everything apart from the words that are said by the person at the centre of the story. And then I use my process of statement investigation to give you the key to seeing deception, where the truth is, and also the motivations of the person talking. It's a process that I use with investigators, with corporate clients, and with the media to get a deep understanding of what is being said. So the case, Charlie Adelson was the first Adelson to be convicted for the murder of Dan Markel. His mother, Donna Adelson, has recently joined him in that. Now, it's not going to be a big stretch for anyone to point out that when we look at Charlie testifying in court, he's lying. It's factual. He was lying. He was found guilty. So what I want to do is give you a look inside how he lies, the way he uses words to lie, and what you can do when someone is lying to you to spot the lies in their words. You see, lying is hard. It's a really stressful thing to do. In fact, also, we don't get taught how to lie, so liars figure it out for themselves, and they're really bad at figuring out how to tell a lie so it sounds like the truth. So if you know what you're looking for, a lie can sound like a lie. And I'll point out some of the tactics that Charlie uses when he's talking to do that. And I want you to keep an eye out as well for when fiction meets fact. You see, when we make up a story, and Charlie has made up a whopper of a story here, that's fine. We can make up fantastical stories, but it has to match the facts that other people know, especially in this murder case, which the police have been investigating thoroughly, the FBI too. So Charlie has to make sure that his fiction meets up with the facts as they are known, which gets him in a bind, as we will see. So we're going to take Charlie on the stand and break down how you could have spotted his lies at the time. This is the first thing we're going to look at. Charlie, under direct from his own attorney.
You had a bunch of surgeries in that second office, right?
Yeah, they're usually packed.
And do you recall from a text message that around a little after 6, you were about to start a big procedure?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Now, at some point in time, you hear from your mom. How do you hear from your mom?
I had a missed call from her, 1 or 2 missed calls, and then she texted me, call us ASAP.
And why did you miss the calls? What were you doing?
I was in surgery.
Okay. After she texted you, call her ASAP, what did you do?
I stopped what I was doing. I could see the text messages on the phone as they come in, so I knew it was important. I stopped what I was doing, and I called her right back.
When you called her back, what did she tell you?
She told me that Wendi had just called her and that Dan had been shot and that it was serious and that her and my dad are going to be going up to Tallahassee to be with her.
How did you react?
I was shocked. I said, is he okay? Is he going to be okay? Are the boys okay? Or Wendy's okay? Like what happened?
And what did your mom tell you?
She said she didn't know any details, that it was really serious, and that Wendy's with the police right now, and they're questioning her.
Now, after you got off the phone with your mom, what did you do?
I went back to work.
And did you have some communications with people after that through text messages about how you were feeling?
I did.
And generally speaking, how were you feeling?
I wasn't feeling great. I was pretty upset about what I just heard.
Now, around what time, if you remember, did you leave the office?
Probably about between 8:20 and 8:30.
Okay. And again, it's a pretty far drive, correct? Even at that time of night.
Yeah, there's no traffic at that time, so I could speed a little bit. But.
On your car ride home, did you make phone calls?
Yes, I did.
And in particular, and we'll do it one at a time, did you speak with Catherine Magbanua?
Yes, I did.
And what did you tell Catherine Magbanua on your ride home?
I told her that my ex-brother-in-law had been shot, and it's serious. And I just told her I really didn't feel like going out tonight, and we just hang out at the house if you still want to come over. She said, no, I'm still coming to see you.
How did she seem?
She seemed normal. I mean, she seemed concerned, but nothing out of the ordinary.
Right, that is all a pile of rubbish. We know that now. He would not have had a phone call from Donna because they'd arranged the hit together to say, oh, Dan's been shot. I mean, that might have happened, but as a cover. And then obviously he'd arranged the hit through Catherine. So again, he didn't phone up and have that conversation with her at all. Now, let's break down and see the lies. Let's go to the first part there. Do you recall from a text message that around a little after 6, you were about to start a big procedure? And Charlie says, yes, I do. Now, honest answer. Deals directly with the question. It's a yes/no question, and he says yes, and he says, yes, I do. There's some content beyond just the yes. So Charlie can be honest, and one of the things that liars do is hide in honesty as much as they can. There's no point, if it's not sensitive, there's no point in saying no when it did happen and it's not harmful. So yes, I do. And we can start to kind of baseline Charlie's honesty by looking at these things. His honesty is very much like most people's. Yes, I do. Now, at some point in time, you hear from your mom. How do you hear from your mom? I had a missed call from her, 1 or 2 missed calls, and then she texted me, call us ASAP. Got some mismatches going on here. The number of calls changes, so there's no certainty in the story. Now, just because there's no certainty in the story doesn't prove it's a lie, but it's all these little data points that we will pick up from what Charlie says that will all add up to say, this could be a lie. I had a missed call from her. 1 or 2 missed calls, and then she texted me, call us ASAP. Call us, by the way, call us. I noticed this about Donna a lot. She seems to refer to we and us. I think it means herself and her husband, Harvey, but call us ASAP. Why did you miss the calls, is the question. What were you doing? I was in surgery. Again, I think kind of true story. After she texted you, call her ASAP, what did you do? I stopped what I was doing. I could see the text messages on the phone as they come in, so I knew it was important. So I stopped what I was doing. I could see the text messages, plural, on the phone. Now, he's only spoken about one text, this call us ASAP. But now, again, the number of things here is changing all the time. It was one call, it was more than one call. It was a text message, now it's more than one text message on the phone as they come in the present tense. We would expect past tense for a past event, but for some reason, Charlie is using the present tense here. Another indicator when someone is using the present tense to talk about past events, they could be making it up in the present time, which is why they use the present tense. So I knew it was important. Now, knew is an interesting one. I knew it was important. Well, if you put yourself in the mindset of the guy who had ordered the hit, knew the hit was today, and mom is texting, you'll know it was important, not thought it could be important. And Donna seemed to be the type of person that would order people around and say, call us, call me, I need to speak to you. That seemed to be her character, whether it was important or not. If it was important to Donna, it had to be important to everyone. But I knew it was important. So again, get a sense that Charlie's not telling the truth here. He says, I stopped what I was doing and I called her right back. I stopped what I was doing and called her right back. It's the second time he stopped. Did you notice that? I stopped what I was doing. I could see the text messages on the phone as they came in, so I knew it was important. I stopped what I was doing and I called her right back. When liars tell stories, very often the same action happens twice. It's because they've got almost like a script in their head. When you've really experienced something, you've got the events in your head. But it's not just a list of things that have happened. It's what you were thinking at the time. It's what you were feeling at the time. And you remember those feelings, not as words, but as actual feelings. When you are making something up, and you tend to just have words in your head. I stopped what I was doing 2 times there. Also, I called her right back to a text. You call someone back to a missed call, but he was saying it was the text that made him call her. So I called her right back in reply to the text. When you called her back, what did she tell you? She told me that Wendi had just called her and that Dan had been shot and that it was serious and that her and my dad were going to be going up to Tallahassee with her. So Wendi had just called me. She told me that Wendi had just called her is the first thing reported in this conversation. Now, God, if you have to phone someone to say your ex-brother-in-law's being shot, what's the most important thing that you're going to say and relay and all that? Maybe I've just heard from Wendi, but Dan has been shot would be the biggest thing there. However, if you're telling a lie and it's important to say, oh, we just found out, we didn't know any of this beforehand, you're going to say Wendi had just called her. That Donna knew from Wendi because Donna had been part of setting it all up, but Donna knew from Wendi is the impression that Charlie wants to give, which is why it's the first thing that he mentions there. Wendi had just called her, so my mum didn't know anything previously to this, and she only knew anything as soon as Wendi had just called her. And that Dan had been shot and that it was serious, as opposed to, I guess, the kind of non-serious shooting that happens. Dan had been shot and that it was serious. 2 different things. And you remember Dan was supposed to be shot and killed. What maybe made it serious for Charlie and for Donna was he hadn't been killed. He was very much still alive. Dan had been shot and it was serious. It there, not he was in a serious situation or that it was touch and go for him, just it was serious. So taking the human out of all that and just making it about the situation. And that her and my dad are going to be going up to Tallahassee to be with her. So he's then asked, how did you react? And he says, I was shocked. Now, that's an interesting one for me because how did you react is what reaction did you have? I was shocked is not a reaction, it's a feeling. And why is that an important thing for him to do, to tell us how he was feeling? Because, again, in his telling of the story, this is the first time that he's heard this. He wants to make sure that we know he was shocked, amazed that he'd had this phone call from Donna saying that Dan had been shot, even though we know he'd be expecting this phone call. He would be expecting all of this. I say, is he okay? Is he going to be okay? Are the boys okay? So, God, is he okay? Is he going to be okay? So I was shocked and I want to know that he's okay. Again, things that would be important for him to get across because he hopes he's not okay because he's arranged the hit. He hopes that he's gone. And is he going to be okay? Again, that is going to be a big pressure point for Charlie and Donna in all of this because they wanted him shot and gone. Dan was shot, and when he was first shot, he was still alive there. So he wants us to think that he was playing along with the game. He was part of all this. I just did not know what was happening, and I really hoped that he was going to be okay. You'll note that the state of Dan is never relayed here. Dan has been shot, but he's not dead. And that fact is never raised here. And then he says, and Wendy's okay. Like, what happened? Now, just from that little snippet that he's given us here, Dan has been shot and it's not great. It's not Dan has been shot in his driveway or anything like that. Wendy's okay. Like, you know, why? And this seems to be something that the Adelsons have in their little narrative here, that they all had to be worried. Would Wendi be okay? Would Wendi be in danger when they knew she was in no danger because they'd organised it? And what did your mom tell you, says his attorney? She said she didn't know any details, that it was really serious, and that Wendy's with the police right now and they're questioning her. So she didn't know any details, and then goes on to give details. She didn't know any details, knew the detail it was serious, knew the detail that Wendy's with the police right now and that the police are questioning her. So she didn't know any details, but then goes on to give all the details. After you got off the phone with your mom, what did you do? I went back to work, says Charlie. And did you have some communications with people after that through text messages about how you were feeling? And he says, I did. And generally speaking, how were you feeling? He says, I wasn't feeling great. I was pretty upset about what I just heard. So, wasn't feeling great. Maybe truthful. Maybe he wasn't feeling great because Dan had not been killed outright in the shooting. I was pretty upset Not upset. He wants to turn the severity up here. Pretty upset. I was pretty upset by that. I mean, I'm not sure if that sounds a little bit mediocre upset or whether that is, more upset. But I was pretty upset about what I just heard. Not pretty upset about the fact that his ex-brother-in-law was in hospital fighting for his life, or had just been shot, or his sister's ex-husband had just been shot and he was worried about her. Just upset about what I just heard. Again, I just heard this. This is the whole thing that he wants to get across in his answers here, that this was all news to him, that his mum had just relayed the information, which was all news to her. It's the most important thing for him to do, to get this lie across the line. These are parts of the story that have to be hit, and he wants to hit them again and again and again. Truthful people tend to just relay your story. Liars have things that they really want to really want you to believe, so they will come back to them again and again and again, such as Charlie here, talking about how he just found out, how his mom had just found out constantly. Around what time, if you remember, did you leave the office? Charlie says, probably between 8:20 and 8:30. And again, it's a pretty far drive, correct? Even at that time of day. And Charlie gives one of the worst answers I've heard in court. Yeah, there's no traffic at that time, so I could speed a little bit. Now, he's on trial for law breaking. That's why we're all on trial. I'm not on trial. You're not on trial. Lots of people are on trial for law breaking. And Charlie makes a joke in that trial about breaking the law. I don't think that's a great thing to tell the jury. I have a little respect for the laws. Speeding is there to protect people from being... Speeding laws are there to protect people from being killed by speeding cars. And yet, yeah, I could speed a little bit. Always pay attention to what people joke about. It reveals a lot about their personality. And because it's a joke, we tend not to take what they say too seriously, tend not to look into it too deeply and attach the subject of the joke to them as a person. That's a mistake. What people joke about often gives an insight into their personality. And here, Charlie speeds. The laws don't apply to him. They apply to other people. Laws, rules apply to other people, but not to me. Pay attention to jokes, especially ones that people make in bad taste in court. On your car ride home, did you make phone calls? Yes, I did. This is the truthful Charlie pattern. In particular, we'll do it one at a time. Did you speak with Catherine McBanawa? Yes, I did. Again, I believe these things happen. Charlie's answers are crisp and sharp and on point and deal with the question that's been asked. And what did you tell Catherine McBanawa on your ride home? I told her that my brother-in-law, my ex-brother-in-law, had been shot and it's serious. And I just told her I really didn't feel like going out tonight. So we've got the word just in there. I just told her I didn't feel like going out tonight. Now, we know that Charlie and Catherine must have had a very different conversation. Maybe it was a coded conversation. Maybe it was a much more in-depth conversation about what had gone on that day, because Catherine had arranged the hitmen for Charlie. And I just told her I didn't feel like going out that night. So he's trying to narrow our focus down with that word just. This was all that happened. Just focus on this thing, which is me saying I didn't feel like going out that night. Forget anything else. Forget anything else that it was possible that we spoke about. Just focus on this. And we'll just hang at the house if you still want to come over. And she said, no, definitely. I'm still coming to see you. Now, he wasn't asked what she said, but he's decided he's going to go a little bit extra just to flesh this story out a little bit, maybe to explain why Catherine came over to Charlie's house that night, on the night of the murder. She said, no, definitely, I'm still coming to see you. So he's gone a little bit extra from what was asked in the question, because the question was, what did you tell Catherine on your way home? But he gives us that little bit extra of what Catherine told him as well. And then he's asked, how did she seem? And he says, she seemed normal. I mean, she seemed concerned, but nothing out of the ordinary. Now, people who have done bad things, have guilty knowledge, like to say that things, when they were doing these bad things, when they were up to no good, what they like to tell us that everything was normal and everything was ordinary. Things we don't notice when things are normal and when things are ordinary, that just doesn't occur to us. We're exception machines. We notice when things are different. It's very hard for us to say when things are normal. And Charlie here seems to be leaning on that normality. How did she seem? She seemed normal. She seemed concerned, but nothing out of the ordinary. So he's leaning there on normal and nothing out of the ordinary. But also he contradicts himself, because she seemed concerned. She seems concerned, but nothing out of the ordinary. Well, unless concern is an ordinary state for her, then seeming concerned is out of the ordinary. So again, contradictions, emotions don't add up, things that Charlie is saying don't add up, all the way through all of that, just all these little things that don't add up. From Charlie. She seemed concerned, but nothing out of the ordinary. And what I think has happened here is Charlie has done the thing that liars do. He's tried to say how normal things were. How did she seem? Oh, she was normal. And then he realizes that no one is going to seem normal when you call them up and say your ex-brother-in-law has been shot that day. No one's going to be normal because it's an exceptional circumstance. And so he realizes, oh, I've ballsed up here. I've said she seemed normal when obviously she would be concerned. So that's why he goes, she seemed concerned, but nothing out of the ordinary. So Charlie is a very, very, very bad liar. We can spot it in his words. So just in that first section there, so many markers of deception, from the changing number of texts and number of calls. He's keen to push the line that neither Donna nor him had any forewarning of events. He keeps hitting that symbol, if you like, and that's a red flag. That conversation with Catherine is very constructed, and we also have false emotions all the way coming through there when Charlie's describing shock and concern, but it was ordinary. Now, Charlie is going to talk about the TV code, or his denial that there was any talk about the TV as a code for the murder. That's coming up later, but let's go back to him on the stand. This time, he's been cross-examined by the prosecutor.
You could have told her, Katie's down on her luck and I'm just going to be putting her on the payroll. I mean, you were making enough money, you could tell her to just write checks, couldn't you? Why'd you have to tell her it was an extortion from Latin King gang members?
Well, okay, at that time I didn't know anything about the Latin Kings, but when I told her what happened, I was thinking that, it actually would be good if someone knows what happened in case I get killed. They at least know what direction to start looking in. So until that point, nobody even knew. So when she started questioning me, I just said, you know what, I'm going to tell you, but don't say a thing to Dad. Don't say a thing to Wendi. You got to promise me. I didn't want her to ever talk about this again. And that was the day that she found out, is when I got the checks.
What she doesn't say on the wire is, it's happening again. I was approached by another extortionist today. Does she say that?
No, she's talking very carefully.
And you say carefully, but isn't carefully the same thing as code?
No, they're two totally separate things. You know the difference?
You weren't really giving her money for a TV, were you?
Giving her money for a TV.
This TV is probably going to be about $5. Okay. I need you to bring cash tonight.
I wish she picked another object on planet Earth other than TV. But TV is code for absolutely nothing. There is no code in this case involving TV. And you keep circling and circling and circling TV, you're wrong.
Is it a coincidence that the repair of the TV that you bought Wendi as a divorce gift because it was cheaper than hiring a hitman is your sister's alibi for the murder, and then your mom brings up TV first call on the wire?
It's not an alibi for a murder. She had a broken TV. You got to ask Lincoln, who threw the remote at the TV.
Was it a coincidence? Is the TV thing a coincidence? That's what I hear you say.
Oh, that the repairman was there that day?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that is a coincidence for sure. There's a couple of coincidences in this case.
I'm sorry, I cut you off.
I said there's a couple of coincidences in this case. I mean, she had people send her an email to go buy a bottle of Bullet bourbon for their Stock the Bar party, and she was driving to a liquor store to buy a bottle of Bullet bourbon on that day, at that time, and her friend sent the email, and you have the email and evidence. Like, is that a coincidence? Yeah, coincidences happen.
And that you might not be the right Katie talk, that doesn't seem to really fit with your theory of the case, does it? What was your explanation for that? Why you kept saying you might not be the right Katie? I mean, she's definitely the right Katie, right?
Absolutely. She knew it was. I was implying it was her. I was just trying to say, I'm not setting you up, but I need your help.
On call B, you call your mom back, and you say, you probe her a little bit, and ultimately you say, you think someone's trying to blackmail you? That's crazy. Why does it sound like this is something that's new and unfathomable to you at that moment?
Well, because I wasn't even following what my mom was talking about on the first call. And on the second call, which she shocked me when she said that. And I'd been extorted before, and her saying to bring cash, everything just didn't sound right.
So this is talking about the wiretaps, and this is very much when fiction meets fact. Charlie has told a story about these Latin kings, gang members that were extorting him, and now the prosecutor is bringing up facts, things that they have evidence happened, and asking Charlie, can you account for how these things that we know are factual mix in with the story that you've just told? And it's very hard for Charlie because he's in fiction land. You could have told her, Katie's down in her luck and I'm just going to be putting her on the payroll. I mean, you were making enough money. You tell her just to write the checks, couldn't you? Why'd you have to tell her? Why'd you have to tell her it was an extortion from Latin King gang members? Charlie says, well, okay, at the time. The answer starts with the word well. Not an indication you're being lied to, but an indication you're not going to get a clean answer and a direct answer to the question you've asked. Whenever anyone says it, it means there's an explanation, or there's some reasons, or some excuses are on the way, but not the answer that you expect to get. Well, okay, at the time, I didn't know anything about the Latin kings. But when I told her what happened, I was thinking that, you know what, it would actually be good if someone knows what happened in the case I get killed. They at least know what direction to start looking in. What? Confusing. A word salad. My way of looking at this is, can you picture this answer in your head? Can you clearly think through what he's just said? Even if it makes no sense logistically, can you see what it is that he's saying? And I can't. I find it really hard to get my head around what it is he's saying there. When people are telling us things that happened, we can picture in our head very much more easily what happened. For example, if I told you today that I took a walk through the park and the rain started and I didn't have a hat, so my hair got wet, that's what happened, right? It's very easy to picture. If I told you that I went for a walk this morning and I wanted to get a new hat yesterday, but I couldn't get a new hat because I didn't have time to go out to the shop. So when I went to walk, the rain started, my hair was wet, and I was like, oh, why didn't I not get... You start to lose the clarity and sharpness of the picture, and that's what's happening there. You can't picture the answer. It's way too complex. He doesn't have a simple way of saying it, which suggests it's not an authentic experience. When we've got that authentic experience inside us, we usually find it really easy and smooth to verbalize it. He said, so until that point, nobody even knew. So we've got a so going on, which is like a well. This is just and so storytelling. And this happened, so this happened. It's an excuse. It's a reason. It is not just a plain, simple narrative. Until that point, nobody even knew. You were being extorted. So you knew. The people extorting you knew. I know what you mean, but once more, all these little data points just keep adding up there. Well, actually, the truth is nobody knew because it didn't happen. Nobody even knew. But again, it doesn't compute. It's not the real words, and these are the things that pop out. So we've got the so again. This is really and so storytelling. When she started questioning me, I just said, you know what, I'm going to tell you, but don't say a thing to Dad, don't say a thing to Wendi, you got to promise me. Watch Charlie's I just pattern, by the way. He says, I just, and then he seems to pull out of that quite a lot in this testimony. He says, I just, and then he builds more before he goes on to say, I just, and finishes the thought off as if I just, and then he feels like, I haven't painted the picture vividly enough. I'm going to have to turn the severity up here. When she started questioning me, I just said, you know what? I'm going to tell you, but don't say a thing to Dad, don't say a thing to Wendi, you got to promise me. This feels like protection here to me. Mom is on the hook big time. She's on all these wiretaps. Dad and Wendi, I'm going to protect them by saying, I said to Mom, don't say to Dad, don't say to Wendi. I didn't want her to ever talk about this again. And that's when the day that she found out is when I got the checks. Again, can you picture that? I didn't want her to ever talk about this again. And that was the day that she found out is when I got the checks. Doesn't make sense. The day she found out, not the day she was told. But again, just hard to picture this. The prosecutor says, what she doesn't say on the wire is, it's happening again. I was approached by another extortionist today. Does she say that? And he says, no, she's talking very carefully. It's a yes, no question. Does she say that? And Charlie is very quick to say a no. The truth, the real sign of the truth coming on there from Charlie. No, she's talking very carefully. And as you say carefully, but isn't carefully the same thing as code? No, they're two two totally separate things. You know the difference. Now, we've got, again, this Charlie saying, he was going to say they're two separate things, but he feels like he's going to pull out of that thought and he's going to turn up the severity. They're two totally separate things. You know the difference. You weren't saying you weren't really giving her money for a TV, were you? And Charlie says, giving her money for a TV? Is that question in response to a question? Because is the heat turning up inside Charlie here? Is he going, oh my God, what am I doing here? I don't think any of this is making any sense. I need to buy myself some thinking time. So what I'm going to do, next question she asks is ask a question back. Ask for some clarification. You really weren't giving her money for a TV, were you? And Charlie says, giving her money for a TV? The prosecutor quotes the wiretap of the text. The TV is probably going to be about $5. I need you to bring cash tonight. Charlie says, I wish she picked another object on planet Earth other than TV, but TV is code for absolutely nothing. There is no code in this case involving TV. I wish she'd picked another object on planet Earth. Or told the truth? No, what he wants here is code going on. So as much as he's wanting to say there is no code, we were talking carefully, I wish she'd picked another object on planet Earth other than TV. But TV is code for absolutely nothing. Now, absolutely, one of Charlie's words that he uses when he's deceiving, we'll see it a lot more. But TV is code for nothing would do. Or TV is not code for anything. Instead, it is TV is code for absolutely nothing. Not just nothing, but absolutely nothing. The addition of absolutely does not change the meaning of the sentence. It changes the intensity and the severity of the sentence because Charlie is on a mission to persuade here. TV is code for absolutely nothing. There is no code in this case involving TV. Charlie is talking about it as a case, very much like a lawyer would look at it or a detective would look at it. This case, not this story, or not me and my mom, we don't talk in code, which would be very humane from him, very personal, very close, talking about him and his mom and saying we don't talk in code. But he's gone out to talk about this case, slightly more distant. And you keep circling and circling and circling TV, you're wrong. And he's asked, is it a coincidence that the repair of the TV that you bought Wendi as a divorce gift because it was cheaper than hiring a hitman is your sister's alibi for the murder? And then your mom brings up TV on the first call on the wire. And he says, it's not an alibi for a murder, not the murder of Dan Markel, but it's not an alibi for a murder. So he's talking in kind of general terms here rather than talking about just the real things that went on. She had a broken TV. Very straightforward. She absolutely had a broken TV. There's nothing to persuade us in there. She had a broken TV. And we know, because this is when fiction meets fact, she did have a broken TV. How it got broken is another matter. How long it was broken, all those sort of things. But she had a broken TV. It's a factual sentence from Charlie. This is what his truth looks like. Then he says, you got to ask Lincoln who threw the remote at the TV. Now, I'm not au fait with absolutely everything in this trial, but I have watched the Dan Adelson trial, and Jeff Lacasse talked about the broken TV, and Wendi spoke about the broken TV, and no one seemed to know how this TV got broken. Wendi hasn't seemed to convey to anyone how this TV got broken, and yet Charlie seems to think that Lincoln, which is one of Dan and Wendy's children, threw the remote at the TV. Very precise, very, very precise that Charlie has that detail of how the TV got broken. If you know more on this, do let me know in the comments, please, because I'd be very interested to know, how does Charlie know this? But Wendi claimed at Donna's trial the other week that she had no idea. Was it a coincidence? Is the TV thing a coincidence? That's what I hear you say. Oh, the repairman that was there that day, says Charlie. So he's all of a sudden going, oh, I think what he knew was he was doing anything he could to circle around talking about the repairman there that day. Oh, that the repairman was there that day? Yes, sir. Yes, that is a coincidence for sure. Persuasive again. It's not, yeah, that's a coincidence. That's a coincidence for sure. There's a couple of coincidences in this case. So again, he mentions this case, not looking at it again as a very personal thing, tragedy at the heart of the family. It's a case. I said there's a couple of coincidences in this case. I mean, she had people send her an email to go buy a bottle of Bullet Bourbon for their Stop the Bar party, and she was driving to a liquor store to buy a bottle of Bullet Bourbon. On that day, at that time, and her friend sent the email, and you have the email and the evidence. Like, is that a coincidence? Yeah, coincidences happen. Now, I've got a very clear story from him there. So, number one, compare the clarity of that story to some of his other ones. But you'll notice that he talks about this bullet bourbon. Doesn't explain why it's a coincidence. You know, he doesn't mention the shooting. He's shying away from mentioning the shooting. Yeah, I get coincidence that on the day that her ex-husband was shot, Wendi was buying bullet bourbon. There's a coincidence, but he doesn't finish the coincidence off. He leaves it unsaid because people who are guilty don't like mentioning their crime, don't like mentioning the severity of the crime, or reminding people that guns and bullets were involved in all of this. And you'll notice he doesn't talk about the TV repairman coincidence. It's disappeared. He doesn't feel the need to square that off or talk about it anymore. He just wants to go on to talk about this bullet bourbon coincidence. Do you know why this could be? It could be because, look, the clarity of that story says to me that he believes that is a coincidence. It is, in fact, a real coincidence that Wendi was buying bullet bourbon that day. So it's easy to talk about. He has clarity when he talks about it compared to some of the other BS that Charlie has been putting out there. I think it's a real coincidence, or at least he believes it's a real coincidence. Oh, Charlie. And you might say, and you might not be the right Katie talk, which is on the wire. That doesn't seem to really fit with your theory of the case, does it? What's your explanation for that? Again, this is Charlie's fiction meeting fact. When you kept saying you might not be the right Katie, I mean, she's definitely the right Katie, right? Absolutely, says Charlie. There's his favourite word of deception come up again. Absolutely, she knew it was. I was implying it was her, and I was just trying to say, I'm not setting you up, but I need your help. Once again, we've got something that Charlie was saying to Catherine Katie, and he was just doing this. He's hiding a whole load of other things inside it. On call B, you call your mom back and you say, you probe her a little bit, and ultimately you say, you think someone's trying to blackmail you? That's crazy. Why does it sound like this is something that's new and unfathomable to you at that moment? Charlie says, well, so we've got an explanation coming again, a reason, an excuse, because I wasn't even following what my mom was talking about on the first call. Not I wasn't following, it's I wasn't even following. So it's persuasive here. And on that second call, she shocked me when she said that. And I'd been extorted before. And her saying to bring cash, so we've got that word just again, everything just didn't sound right. So we have no depth again here. It's just, she shocked me when she said that. And I'd been extorted before. Not anything about who was doing the extortion, or how bad it was or how frightened it was when this other thing happened again. It's just all surface there. And again, it doesn't really make sense. It doesn't all fit together because he's talking a whole load of BS. So this is a great example of why lying is so hard, because as well as making that fictitious story, you have to ensure that your fictional words go with the facts that others are aware of. And when Charlie is challenged on this, he falls apart. He makes no sense when he's talking. Despite his confidence there, when you break down his words, it doesn't make any sense. And often what people avoid mentioning is instructive as well. He avoided mentioning the shooting. He avoided mentioning the TV repairman coincidence that he had. He avoided mentioning the person that was extorting him. Now, coming up in a bit, Charlie finds the trial funny. Do you find a murder trial funny? Charlie did, but let's have another listen to some more from him.
When the $1 million offer was conceived, do you recall whose idea that was?
My parents.
Why was the relocation worth $1 million?
Well, it was actually I was going to pay a third, so I only looked at it as that way. Why was it worth it?
Mm-hmm. That's the question.
Because it was going to help my sister out, and it was going to be it was going to give her a good opportunity for a good job down here, and she was going to be around family, and family's important, so that's why.
Isn't it true that financially you came out ahead on this deal as opposed to if you had coughed up the third of the $1 million offer?
How in the world did I come up ahead? This is the craziest
Financially,
thing.
You paid $138,000, then you paid $2,000 a month plus the $1,000 payroll amount. You're still about over $100,000 ahead financially than if you had coughed up the $333K.
No, I would have been better off paying. And first of all, I never paid for murders. This is a crazy question, but paying $3,000 a month for life is not anything anybody wants to do.
I didn't say anything about paying for a murder. I said you paid $138,000, which you did.
I got extorted for $330,000.
And then you paid, but you didn't pay the $330,000.
Right, because I didn't have it. I had that cleared out my safe, and that was what was in my safe that night.
This guy. When the $1 million offer was conceived, do you recall whose idea that was? This is the offer to Dan Markel to let Wendi and the kids leave Tallahassee for $1 million. Charlie's answer is my parents. Why was the relocation worth $1 million? Charlie says, well, so again, he's not going to give you a straightforward answer. It was actually. I was going to pay a third, so I looked at it that way. Why was it so worth it? That's the question. Because it was going to help my sister out, and it was going to give her a good opportunity for a good job down here. And she was going to be around family, and family's important, so that's why. Now, this is really interesting. Why was it worth $1 million? Because it was going to help my sister out, and it was going to give her a good opportunity for a good job down here. And she was going to be around family, and family's important, so that's why. So that's why. So he's telling you, I've answered the question. It's like, boom, boom, done. Don't ask me any more on this. Very remote chances they are going to be worth $1 million. Look how remote it is. It was going to help my sister out. It's not very certain, is it? It was going to give her a good opportunity for a good job, not even a great job of her dreams, just an opportunity for a good job. And we have the it was going to, which is kind of a little bit uncertain, rather than the it would help my sister out. It would give her a good chance to get a good job. It was going to is a little bit more vague and really not worth all that $1 million. Isn't it true financially you came out ahead on this deal as opposed to if you'd coughed up the third of the $1 million offer? How in the world did I come up ahead? This is the craziest thing, says Charlie. Financially, you paid $138,000 and then you paid $2,000 a month plus the $1,000 payroll amount. You're still over $100,000 ahead financially than if you'd coughed up the $333K. No, I would have been better off paying. And first of all, I never paid for a murder. So no, I would have been better off paying. We don't know. He pulls out of that thought. I would have been better off paying. And first of all, I never paid for a murder. Now, the allegation, as is pointed out to him, that he paid for a murder has not been made. She, when she was putting all those numbers together, never mentioned the amount that was paid for the murder here. No, I would have been better off paying. First of all, I never paid for a murder. I never paid for a murder. The word never so often appears in deception. We use it because it sounds firm and concrete and really convincing. However, it's not very reliable. Never falls apart when we look at the definition that someone uses when they mean never. So I never paid for a murder. Again, not Dan's murder, not anything close and personal at all, just this generic. I never paid for a murder. So this is a crazy question. But paying $3,000 a month for life is not anything anybody wants to do. Kind of true. I'm sure there's very few people that want to pay $3,000 a month for life, but anything anybody wants to do, not yourself, Charlie, because you did it in your words. So why were you doing it if it's not anything anybody wants to do? I didn't say anything about paying for a murder, says the prosecutor. I said you paid $138,000, which you did. I got extorted for $330,000, says Charlie. You'll notice again, the extortionist has disappeared. It's not, I was extorted by this group, this person. There's no anger or anything like that about this fake extortion that he's talking about. I got extorted for $330,000. The extortionate, the perpetrator has just disappeared. And then you paid, but you didn't pay the $330,000. Right, because I didn't have it. That cleared out of my safe, and that was what was in my safe that night. And again, I've got a big huh. What on earth is Charlie talking about there? Right, I didn't have it. I had that cleared out in my safe, and that was what was in my safe that night. Again, when it's not real and authentic experience, we all, and Charlie especially, have some real hard times getting those words about it. So here, there's so much distance here. It's a murder, the missing perpetrator around the extortion, and it's just plain old confusing. Now, Charlie does talk about Wendi, and we're going to see a little bit more of that as we listen to more from Charlie testifying and looking at the language of lies. Do you ever feel like you're not getting the full story? My boy Charlie here is making me feel like that, but also, as we've been speaking about, happens all around us, and we are here to help everyone spot the language of lying and giving you the key to seeing deeper, because this is about hearing the world with new ears. The sort of tactics that Charlie's using, they happen around you all the time. Maybe not with such serious consequences, but they are still happening. I want to share the skill with as many people as possible. So if you want to unlock the secret, subscribe. Follow and join in the Never a Truer Word movement. You can dive into the archives. There's a whole load more in the Adelson family if you want to look at it. A whole lot more of people on trial and how they talk and whether we can believe their testimony or disbelieve their testimony. It's a treasure trove of cases waiting to be explored. And do you know someone who needs this, someone who deserves to hear the truth? Well, if you hit the like button, that helps this get out to more people. If you comment on this, it gets to more people as well. Or if you know someone directly, share it with them, recommend it to them. Do pass this on, because every single click, every single share fuels the fire for Never a Truer Word. It allows me to dig deeper, to analyse further, and bring this life-changing skill to even more people. Let's hear some more from Charlie.
Can we agree that Wendi was stressed out about the issues surrounding her divorce?
I think the divorce caused stress in her life, yes.
And you were hearing about it from your mother, weren't you?
Yeah, I would hear.
Wendy's totally stressed out. Yesterday was a rough one, that sort of thing.
Yes, it's like I said it before, is that my sister would tell my mom a story. I'd be sitting in the car driving. My mom would be talking to me and telling me the latest story of the day. And that's how I found out a lot.
And then on 2/19 of 14, Donna texts you again to tread lightly with Wendi and refers to Dan Markel as an asshole and a fucker, right?
Sorry. You made me laugh. Sorry.
That's what I'm here for. Is that what happened? That text?
Did my mom use a foul word to describe him?
Yes, sir. Asshole and fucker, to be specific.
Sorry. She used a curse word, correct.
Is that pretty strong language for your mom, or is that how she speaks?
I mean, it is pretty strong language, but I think I've been called a lot worse, but if my mom used a curse word, she used a curse word. You just use curse words too, so.
All right, Charlie the baby. Now, by the way, we're talking about Wendi's divorce here. The next episode of Never a Truer Word, if all goes to plan, should be looking at Wendi Adelson and the shifting stories she's told about her visit to Trescott Avenue. So subscribe if you want to make sure you do not miss that one. Let's go back to Charlie, though. Can we agree that Wendi was stressed out about the issues surrounding her divorce? I think the divorce caused stress in her life. Yes, says Charlie. Again, it's very straightforward. There's a yes there, and as well an agreement there, and some content around what he's agreeing with. So a simple, straightforward answer. And you were hearing about it from your mother, weren't you? And he says, yeah, I would hear. He doesn't add any more to that. It's a very strange answer. Yeah, I would hear. Not I would hear all about it, or my mom told me, or anything like that. It's all about him. I would hear. Potentially. Why? The reason he said that is coming. Wendi's totally stressed out. Yesterday was a rough day. That sort of thing is the question. He says, yes, I've said it before, is that my sister would tell my mom a story. I'd be sitting in the car driving. My mom would be talking to me and telling me the latest story of the day. A very revealing paragraph of an answer. Yes, so we've got the agreement there, and then we've got some content. I said it before. Now, Charlie doesn't do this a lot, so I'm going to point out that he does it here. I said it before. One of the things that liars really like to point out is how consistent they've been, because they believe if they keep pointing out how consistent they've been with their lies, then we'll believe these must be lies, because I've said it before, I've said it before. As I've said before, as I've always said, all those sort of phrases are ones used by liars to point out how consistent they've been. Truthful people are just consistent. It doesn't even strike them that they're being consistent. So unless pressed, then they do not use phrases like I've said before. As I've said before, but Charlie is something liars do a lot. Try and tell you how consistent they are. Is my sister would tell my mom a story. I'd be sitting in the car driving. Interesting. Extra word there. Sitting in the car driving. You can't stand in the car driving. You can't lie backwards in the car driving. Sitting is a word that he's put in that doesn't need to be there. Sitting often denotes tension. When people talk about sitting or standing, for some reason, it often denotes tension when they're talking. And I think what is coming out here is that mom constantly going out about Wendi issues, stressed Charlie, caused him to be tense. I'd be sitting in the car driving. My mom would be talking to me and telling me the latest story of the day. And then I think this is really revealing as well. And that's how I found out a lot. Now, we know the allegations is that Wendi told things to Donna, who told things to Charlie that were helpful in organising the hit on Dan Markel. Wendi denies that she had anything to do with this. Passing on information about any of these things was nothing to do with her. And, I guess it's plausible because I wasn't there, I don't know, but it's plausible that Wendi could have unwittingly passed on this information. But that's how that's how I found out a lot, is what Charlie says. He found out a lot about Wendi from his mom, but it's information that he found out. You'll notice that it's all, Wendi was stressed out. Yesterday was a rough day. It's an emotional question. The question before was about the stress of the divorce, and Charlie has turned the stress of the divorce into a currency that he got from his mom about Wendi, which is information. He didn't find out about his sister's emotions, feelings, things that were happening in her life. He got information in his own words. And then on 1914, Donna texts you again to tread lightly with Wendi and refers to Dan Markel as an arsehole and a fucker, right? And Charlie laughs. Sorry, you made me laugh. Sorry. That's what I'm here for. Is that what happened? And again, Charlie's like, did my mom use a foul word to describe him? Yes, sir, asshole and fucker to be specific. Now, this whole section we're about to get into is, there are texts where Donna uses those words to describe Dan Markel. And for some reason, Charlie does not want to talk about these. He does not want to engage in these. He could say yes and we could move on very, very quickly, unless he knows there's something more sensitive on the other side of it. So it's you made me laugh in the middle of a murder trial. Someone calling the victim an asshole and a fucker made Charlie, nice guy that Charlie is, made Charlie laugh. Did my mom use a foul word to describe him? So this is buying thinking time again. Yes, sir, asshole and fucker to be specific. Sorry, she used the curse word, correct. That pretty strong language for your mom, or is that how she speaks? And he can't say, that's normal language, or that's strong. He has to talk around it. I mean, it's pretty strong language, but I've been called a lot worse, but if my mom used the curse word, she used the curse word. You just use curse words too, so... Oh, Charlie, I've been called a lot worse. We saw that as well in the Donna Adelson trial. That is it a point that Donna told people to hit? If they ever bring up the names that I called Dan Markel, say you've heard worse. Say you've heard worse than what I've said, to downplay and make my stuff seem not quite so bad. I've been called a lot worse. Is irrelevant. It's you excusing your mom calling this guy bad names. And then there's this really childish thing at the end on the back of laughing at swear words. You just use curse words too. So it's kind of like trying to say, the impression that he wants to give here is, if my mom's a suspect in the killing of Dan Markel because she called him an asshole and a fucker, well, you just used those words as well, Miss Prosecutor, so you must be just as bad as my mom. It's exceedingly childish. It's really, really poor from the guy. So here, I think he slips. So aside from all the comedy, I think he really slips when he mentions information. It's not the feelings. It's not anything at all about Wendi, a person that he got from his mom. His mom gave him information. It's there in his words. It's in black and white. Charlie saying, I got information about Wendi from my mom. And do watch those things that we joke about. The things that we joke about just reveals so much about our personality. Now, we're in a murder trial, and Charlie has laughed a couple of times because he seems to think some of the proceedings here are funny. However, let's not forget there's a victim in this case, Dan Markel, and there are other people who are victims of what happened to Dan Markel's children. So when Charlie is asked about them, how does he cope?
Do your nephews deserve to know the whole truth about who killed their father?
Yeah, now they do.
Do Danny's parents deserve to know what happened to their son?
Absolutely.
And you say you knew. You now say you knew a big piece of what happened, right?
Yes.
Do you feel bad about not volunteering that to Danny's parents?
I feel a sense of relief that now I was able to tell everybody what finally happened.
Yesterday. Almost 10 years later, right?
Yeah.
And that's because you didn't just know a big piece of it. You were a big piece of it, weren't you, Doctor?
I was extorted and I knew a lot, yeah.
Did your nephews deserve to know the whole truth about who killed their father, is the question that's put to Charlie. And he says, yeah, now they do. Do your nephews deserve to know the whole truth about who killed their father? Yes. Now, the agreement with that is yes, they do, but suggests that maybe they don't because, do you deserve to get an award for doing that? Yes, I do deserve it, but I don't have the award yet. Do your children, do the nephews deserve to know the whole truth? Yes. His instinct is not they know now. His instinct is to agree with the question. The nephews do deserve to know the whole truth about who killed their father. And then he says, now they do. Well, they don't. And to say that they do in court, sick, Charlie. Absolutely sick. Absolutely. Do Danny's parents deserve to know what happened to their son? Absolutely, says Charlie, his go-to lie word. It's a yes, no question. Do Danny's parents deserve to know what happened to their son? Yes, they do. Or, I believe they do. But absolutely. So again, all these future-paced questions he's agreeing with. He's not really committing to the fact that these guys, because of the lies that he's told, now know what happened. And you say you knew. I mean, now you say you knew a big piece of what has happened, right? He says yes. Do you feel bad about not volunteering that to Danny's parents? A yes, no question. Do you feel bad about not volunteering that to Danny's parents? Yes, no. And he doesn't say yes, no. He gives an extra bit of content. I feel a sense of relief now. I was able to tell everybody what finally happened. And we just have a massive mismatch in timelines and tenses as we go on here. So let's break that one down. I feel a sense, so feel is in the present tense. I feel a sense of relief that now I was, past tense, able to tell everybody what finally happened. I feel a sense of relief that now I was able to tell, not now I am able to tell, or I felt a sense of relief when I told. We've just got a mismatch of tenses going on here. Tell everybody, just tell the people that have been asked about. Danny's parents were the people that have been asked about. I'm also his nephews, young boys. But he just boils that down to telling everybody. And then what finally happened? It's what happened. Listen, if you were telling the truth, it's not what finally happened. It's what happened. More like the story I finally settled on. I feel a sense of relief now that I was able to tell everybody what finally happened, he says. Yesterday, says the prosecutor, almost 10 years later, right? Yeah, says Charlie. And that's because you didn't just know a big piece of it, you were a big piece of it, weren't you, doctor? I was extorted and I knew a lot. Yeah, he says. So it's a yes, no question. And then we get a yeah at the end. I was extorted and I knew a lot. I mean, again, not I know a lot, and I was extorted. The extortionist is missing again. The person extorting has been forgotten about. The perpetrators have just disappeared. Charlie, the only person in this answer. This is all about the victims and the family of Dan Markel, and Charlie's the only person that Charlie wants to talk about. I was extorted and I knew a lot here. So this part, stilting and self-serving. And there's a look at Charlie Adelson and how people lie in their words. And I hope you got that. I hope you learned some things there. Like when you can't crystal sharp picture what it is they're talking about and form something really clear in your mind when someone is telling you something. If it feels really complex and doesn't hang together, then you may be being lied to. What else to look for? That word, absolutely. Watch for disappearing things like perpetrators or the TV repair that just disappeared so we could talk about another coincidence, because people, when they're lying, like to talk about things they're comfortable talking about. The stress of the lie they do not like doing. And Charlie, terrible liar, and lots of answers that began with well, here comes an explanation, and so on. So I hope you learned something from that. Maybe watching it all over again and listening to the lies being told will skill you up even more. NeverAtruerWord.com is the website. Now there you can find a whole lot more in the Adelsons, including lots on Donna's recent trial. You can also find more videos and more podcasts too, and sign up for the monthly newsletter there as well. It's NeverAtruerWord.com. Wendi Adelson should be coming next. We'll see you soon for something new from Never a Truer Word.